Bless the name of the Lord, people of God. This is Apostle Michael Davis Jr., Senior Pastor of the New Testament Believers Fellowship Church, coming to you live and direct. Once again, this would be part 4 of the games that church people play. So where I left off, I believe it was people that are so critical of leadership but cannot produce anything worth helping the kingdom work. Now, you got everybody, a lot of people in church that always want to give their opinion and their advice. They're like buttholes. Everybody has one. But they offer all of these suggestions, but they have no experience in the area that they're talking about. And then when you ask them to do what they said to do, you find out that they can do absolutely nothing. That all they are is talk. No action. You know, me, I'm a man of action. I'm a person that likes to implement and do stuff. You know, forget the talking. You know, I was always told, it takes money to buy land. Put your money where your mouth is. And a lot of people can do talking because talk is cheap. They're not really putting any effort out by talking, but then when you put out the effort to do some kind of work, then that's when the people run, because they really don't have anything or can't produce anything that's worth anything to help forward and advance the kingdom of God, because all they are is just talk. I've seen it. I've been pastoring almost 10 years, and I've seen this over and over again. People saying they can do this and do that, and they can't do a daggone thing. They can't do anything they'd say. They was just lying. Word is bond. They was just lying. So, I mean, this is so irritating to a pastor, where, you know, the pastor is already pulled away to so much other stuff already. They got a lot on their plate. They got a lot to do. They got to deal with the corporate stuff, with the state or wherever they live in, and the federal stuff they got to deal with, as far as the corporation of their church or whatever things they got going on. If they got a community development corporation, in addition to the church, or if the church owns property or whatever they got going on. Pastors got a whole lot of things. And then if it's a smaller church, the pastor and the pastor's wife is normally the ones that is consumed with all of the expenses and the bills of the church. And when they get people coming around and just bumping their gums and just talking and can't offer anything to produce anything to the work of the kingdom or to bring souls, then they're absolutely useless. You know, I'm not saying throw away people, but I'm saying it's the mentality of people that lie and say a whole bunch of stuff and put themselves forward when you find out they can't really do anything that they're talking about. Here's another one that the Lord told me to speak about. How people will use any means necessary to align themselves to the pastor or wife, even to the length of family relationship. So, you know, you got people out there, oh my God. Well, they will swear up and down that they related to the pastor or the pastor's wife. Now, in my situation, when I lived in Iowa, I found out that my pastor in Iowa was actually one of my cousins. I found out that because when I came there and I told him who I was and who my mother was and who my grandfather was, he said, and I told him who my grandfather was, he said, "I'm your cousin." He said, "I grew up with some of your uncles, especially your uncles and aunties, some of your younger great uncles and aunties." So he goes in his files and he pulls out pictures of my family in him when he was a kid and coming up when he was a teenager. And not once did I try to pull that, oh yeah, the pastor is my cousin. He was an older man, and sometimes I called him uncle because he was way older than me. But I didn't do that stuff. But then I watched other people do that stuff, trying to say, well, I'm related to the pastor. I'm this and I'm that. Come to find out, pastor I was under when I came back to Nashville was related to me too, on my father's side. But I didn't bring it into question or reveal that to people in the church because, how some people think, oh, if you the pastor's relative, then, I can use you to get what I want from the pastor. I can go tell you to be my gopher to go get what I want from the pastor or the pastor's wife. And that's the little tricks that people use. And then what that does is it causes a problem. It's more of a nuisance, like a gnat at the barbecue. Like those flies that fly around you when you're trying to grill and you keep swatting them. That's what that's like. But these are things that just kind of destabilizes things in the ministry. And when people don't get their way of getting close to relatives of the pastor or to align themselves with the relatives of the pastor, then, they get real catty. And then they want to act up and cause all kind of hell in the church. And then when it eventually gets to the pastor or his family, somebody ends up getting hurt and souls end up leaving the fellowship or the church. And by that, when that happens, the blood is on your hands because you've caused a problem in the church. So for those that don't believe me, you don't understand what I'm talking about, how we destroy things with our mouths, go back and read Proverbs, the 6th chapter, and about the 6 things that God utterly hates, and the 7th is an abomination to him. You understand what I'm saying? All right. Here's another one that God told me. Pastors going their own way with God and cutting out all the crap from others' opinions. And this is what God had to do with me personally. Instead of all the voices trying to get in my ear and tell me what I ought to do, this, that, and the third, I have to listen to God. I had to do like Moses, even like Jesus, had to steal away so I can just hear God's voice to tell me what direction I should go and what should I do. Because when a pastor is listening to all these people, so-called advisors, who really don't have the pastor's best interest at heart anyway, but they all want to have their hands in the pot. I'm just being truthful and open and honest. And they want to have their little say-so and stand on their little daggum soapbox. Pastors, bishops, apostles, you all know what I'm talking about. And, one of the most tragic things that happened, and it was too late for this pastor because nobody ever reached out to this pastor. And it was a young pastor, and he was around my age. If he was still alive today, he'd be in his 40s. I think this occurred about 5 years ago. There was a young pastor who had a growing church, and he had so many people in his ear, and the pressure was on him so much. And he was pouring out into everybody else, and nobody was pouring into him. He didn't have anybody to talk to. So the pressure got so hard that the devil tricked this man, and he got a gun and he blew his brains out. He killed himself. And, during that year, 5 years ago, there were a lot of pastors taking their own lives, or somebody, or God sending a cruel messenger to take their lives for the sin that they were in, where they were cheating on their wives, either messing with men or women. and God sent cruel messengers, or God sent people to expose and uncover the sin that they were in. But a pastor, pastors, bishops, apostles, overseers, you all need to go your own way with God and hear his voice and go about your own drumbeat. Because these Negroes out here, they'll drive you crazy in the church. And you got to hear God for yourself. You got to know God for yourself. You got to get on the horns of the altar and lay before the Lord and fast, pray, and consecrate till God answers you in a dream, in a vision, or you audibly hear him talk to you. That's what I did, because I got tired of the stupidity of people always saying this, that, and the third. So now when people talk and say all this other stuff, I'm not paying attention. I'm listening to what God has to say, because that's the ultimate authority, what God has to say. People can talk all day, but I'm turning a deaf ear because I'm listening to him. That's who I got to please. That's who I got to stand before when this earthly tabernacle is dissolved. That's who I got to stand before. The Almighty, Yahuwah, El Shaddai, Elohim, the God of the universe, not the people around me. That is who I answer to. The Almighty, the Elohim. And here's another one. Pastors, focus on your family. And when I say your family, I'm talking about your nuclear family, your wife and kids. Because there's so many pastors out there that do everything for everybody else in the church, and they neglect their own family. The wife don't get the attention that she need to get because the pastor's always tending to the things of the membership. Kids don't get the attention. Pastors don't get to take vacations like they need to because they're always dealing with the membership. And you know what? There's interesting statistics out there. The hardest day for a pastor is Monday, because that's the day after all the stressors happen. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll continue this video in part 5.